I noticed him before he noticed me. It was one of those gray-skied spring days, where the air smells like rain but never quite commits. I'd just finished my morning lecture on Impressionism, my voice still carrying the rhythm of Monet and Degas, when I ducked into a little cafe on 8th and Main for something warm and familiar. He was already there, standing near the door, jacket slightly rumpled, eyes scanning the chalkboard menu like he'd never seen coffee before in his life. He looked lost in the way people do when they're not trying to be found. I stepped up to the counter, ordered my usual chai with almond milk, and tried to ignore the way my heart tugged when I felt his gaze on me. But I turned anyway. Because curiosity always wins with me. And there he was, caught red-handed, staring. "You're staring," I said, not unkindly. He smiled like he knew it. Like he'd been caught doing something dangerous and worth it. "Sorry," he replied, "I think I mistook you for someone I used to dream about." I rolled my eyes, but I laughed. God help me, I laughed. It was the worst pickup line I'd heard in years, but the way he said it, sincere, hopeful, maybe even a little scared, it stuck with me. His name was Jake. He worked in digital marketing but hated it. He had a habit of doodling in the margins of every notebook he owned, and he always ordered the same thing: black coffee, no sugar, no milk. Straightforward. Honest. A little bitter. He asked me out a week later. I said yes. We fell hard and fast, like lightning, like drowning, like the kind of love that grabs you by the collar and shakes the old you out of your skin. He made me feel known. I'd never been with someone who saw the things I tried to hide, and loved me not in spite of them, but because of them. The way I can't walk past a bookstore without going in. How I cry at commercials with piano music. How I leave half-finished mugs of tea everywhere like some forgetful forest witch. He didn't flinch. He memorized me instead. We were reckless with our time together, like we knew something was chasing us. Midnight road trips. Sunrise hikes. Candlelit dinners we made from scratch even when we didn't know what we were doing. Once, we drove 5 hours just to see an outdoor jazz concert in Nashville. We got rained out halfway through, soaked to the bone. I laughed until I cried. He looked at me like I was the only thing that mattered in the world. And maybe I was. For him. One night, lying in his arms, the city lights bleeding through the window, he whispered, "I don't believe in soulmates. But I think I might believe in you." I didn't say anything back. I didn't need to. Because I believed in him too. And in that moment, I thought we had forever. I didn't know yet that forever isn't always as long as you think. It started with a tremor. Barely noticeable at first, just a flicker in my hand as I reached for my keys one morning. I laughed it off. Too much caffeine, maybe. Or just nerves. Teaching a new semester always makes me a little jittery. But the tremor didn't stop. It got worse. Then came the forgetting. Not the harmless kind, like where you left your phone, or if you'd locked the door. No. This was heavier. Deeper. I'd find myself halfway through a lecture, staring at my students, my mind suddenly blank like a canvas washed clean. No color. No form. One afternoon, Jake found me standing in the kitchen, staring at the stove. The kettle was screaming. My hand was on the burner. I didn't feel a thing. He took my hand in his eyes wide with a panic he tried so hard to hide. "Claire," he whispered, "what's going on with you?" And I wanted to tell him the truth. That I'd been waking up tired no matter how long I slept. That sometimes I couldn't remember what day it was. That I'd gone to the doctor last week, after I collapsed in the faculty parking lot. That I was scared. But instead, I smiled. Probably just stress, I lied. Because I didn't want to break the little world we'd built together. I didn't want to see that look in his eyes again, the one that said please don't disappear. But the world has its own rhythm. And love doesn't stop the clock. The diagnosis came in pieces, each word sharper than the last. A rare neurological disorder. Progressive. Degenerative. No cure. I remember sitting in the sterile white room, the doctor's voice muffled like it was coming through water. Jake gripped my hand so tightly I thought it might bruise, but I didn't let go. When we got home, I cried in the shower for nearly an hour. The kind of crying that doesn't make sound, just shakes you until your soul feels empty. That night, I told him. He didn't speak at first. Just pulled me into him like he could hold the disease at bay with his arms alone. I felt his tears on my neck. Hot. Heavy. Whatever this is, he said hoarsely, we face it together. But I saw it, how the light in his eyes dimmed. Just a little. And I began to fade. Day by day, piece by piece, I watched myself unravel. My hands stopped painting. My voice faltered in lectures. Words slipped through me like sand. I started writing everything down, memories, grocery lists, things I didn't want to forget. Like his birthday. The way he kissed my forehead when he thought I was asleep. The smell of his t-shirt after a summer run. I caught him once, standing outside the bedroom door, staring at me through the crack like he was afraid if he blinked I'd vanish. I didn't know how to comfort him. I didn't know how to comfort myself. One morning, I woke up and couldn't remember his name. I looked at him, his face, his eyes, everything I loved, and my chest filled with a quiet terror. I knew I loved him. I knew he was mine. But the name, it was just gone. That was the turning point. That night, he packed a bag. Not to leave me. No, he would never do that. But something had shifted in him. He kissed me gently and whispered, I'll be back soon. I need to figure something out. Then he walked out into the cold November air. And I stood at the window, trembling, wondering if I was watching the man I loved disappear. Or if I was the one already gone. The first time he didn't smile when he walked through the door, I knew something inside him had changed. Jake used to carry joy with him like sunlight, warm, inevitable, always spilling into the room before he even said a word. But that day he looked thinner. Not physically. Emotionally. Like someone had scraped pieces of him away while I wasn't looking. He kissed my forehead, but it was like muscle memory, automatic. He asked me how I was feeling, but his voice was hollow, and he didn't wait for an answer. He went straight to the sink and started washing dishes that didn't need washing. I sat in silence, watching him, a notebook in my lap filled with scribbles I barely understood anymore. I was disappearing, and he was turning into someone I didn't recognize. Jake stopped laughing. Stopped talking about work. He used to tell me everything, the smallest detail, like what kind of tie his boss wore that day, or how his Uber driver played 80s jazz the entire ride. Now he just came home, sat beside me, and stared at the wall. He started sleeping on the couch. Said it was because I tossed too much at night. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. I never had the courage to ask. I think he thought if he got too close, he'd lose me faster. Like distance was a way of preparing for the inevitable. But I wasn't gone yet. And I missed him. One evening, I tried to reach him. I found a half-finished canvas in the closet, one I'd started months ago before my hands began to betray me. I laid it out on the table, taped a brush to my fingers, and let the colors speak for me. It was clumsy, awkward but real. A mountain range. A road leading into the stars. A man and a woman standing at the edge of the world. When he walked in, I pointed to it and said, "Do you remember when we thought we had forever?" He stared at the painting for a long time. His jaw clenched. His eyes wet. But instead of holding me, instead of speaking, he turned and walked into the bathroom and closed the door behind him. The water ran for a long time. That night, I heard him crying through the wall. Not the kind of cry you can mistake for something else. No, this was the sound of someone unraveling. In the morning, I found a stack of books on the kitchen table. Medical research. Neurology. Memory loss therapies. He was trying. Quietly. Desperately. But he was drowning in it. In me. I realized something then. He was not just watching me fade. He was fading with me. But here's what broke me most, he still showed up. Every morning. Every meal. Every time I forgot what day it was, or called him by my brother's name, or dropped a glass and burst into tears for no reason, he was there. Tired. Hollow. But there. Jake had become a shadow of the man I fell in love with, but even shadows are born from light. And though he never said it, I knew he was searching. For a cure. A way to stop time. A loophole in the universe. Anything to bring me back. And I hated myself for needing him so much while he was slowly breaking for me. I don't know what changed in him. Maybe it was the way I forgot my own birthday. Or maybe it was when I mistook him for my father, twice in the same week. But something in Jake snapped. Not in anger. In resolve. He stopped drifting and started moving. I felt it even when he tried to hide it from me. A new tension in his hugs. A fire behind his silence. His eyes, once dulled by helplessness, began to flicker again with purpose. He became obsessed with my diagnosis. Every evening after dinner, while I curled up with the same book I never seemed to finish, he'd sit across from me with a laptop and spiral-bound notebooks covered in tiny, frantic handwriting. Medical terms. Case studies. Alternative therapies. Clinical trials in cities I couldn't even pronounce anymore. And then one day, he found something. I remember that moment. He came home breathless, like he'd been running. There was mud on his shoes and a manila folder in his hand. I need you to listen, he said, kneeling in front of me, unfolding papers like they were ancient scrolls. Claire, I think they misdiagnosed you. The words hung in the air like a storm about to break. I blinked at him. Confused. Tired. But I saw the urgency in his eyes. He explained everything. A small but growing body of neurologists believed that my symptoms matched a rare autoimmune encephalitis, not a purely degenerative condition. It mimicked dementia but was treatable. Reversible, even. If caught early. The problem? My current doctor had refused further testing after the initial scans. No need, he'd said. The progression is clear. But Jake didn't accept that. I spoke to a specialist, he told me. In Chicago. He agreed to look at your case, off the record. I wanted to cry. Not because I understood everything, but because I recognized something in his voice that I hadn't heard in weeks. Hope. The next few days blurred. Jake made calls. Sent my MRI results. Argued with insurance companies. Pushed past the cold front desk of clinics that had dismissed us before. When he wasn't by my side, he was fighting for me. And I started coming back to myself. Not completely. Not magically. But enough to remember who he was. Who we were. Then came the confrontation. Jake filed a formal complaint against my doctor. Demanded a reevaluation. When they refused, he threatened legal action. I had never seen him like that, calm, clear, unshakable. A man on fire. Eventually, they agreed to a second opinion. The specialist flew in. Ran tests. More tests. Hours of them. I don't remember all the details, but I remember Jake never leaving the hospital room. He held my hand through everything, even when I forgot why he was holding it. And then, the truth arrived. I didn't have what they said I had. My condition was real but treatable. With the right medication and therapies, I had a chance. Not a miracle. Not a guarantee. But a window. Jake wept when they told us. Not loud sobs. Just silent tears that slipped down his face as he pressed his forehead to mine. You saved me, I whispered. No, he replied. You saved me. I was drowning, Claire. I just needed a reason to fight. And he found it. In me. In us. In the memory of a woman he loved too much to lose to paperwork and misdiagnosis. He restored my name to me. My story. My future. And in doing so, he began to restore himself. The man I fell in love with used to be light. He laughed easily. Talked too fast when he was excited. Wore sneakers with holes and forgot where he parked every single time. He was flawed in the most beautiful, human way. But the man standing beside me now, this Jake, was not that man. He was sharper now. Focused. Controlled. He moved like someone who no longer believed in accidents. He had become someone else. Not worse. Just forged. Like metal after fire. The changes started small. He began waking up before sunrise. Jogging, not for health but clarity. He stopped eating sugar, caffeine, anything that could blur his thoughts. His apartment became minimalist, no clutter, no distractions. Even the music he played shifted, no lyrics, just haunting, wordless piano. He didn't go back to his old job. Marketing felt meaningless to him now. Instead, he enrolled in an online pre-med course. Yes. Jake. My Jake, the same man who once said, I'd rather walk barefoot across Legos than study science, now buried himself in anatomy textbooks and clinical research. He filled our walls with sticky notes and diagrams, learning everything he could about the disease that almost stole me. You don't have to do this, I told him once, as he highlighted through his third textbook that month. I do, he said without looking up. Because if this ever happens again, to you or someone else like you, I'm not going to be the guy who just watches. That was the cost of loving me. He had lost faith in the world, in systems, in safety. But instead of giving up, he decided to become the kind of man who could fix things, break the cycle, beat the odds. But something else had shifted, too. There were moments, quiet, unexpected, when I caught glimpses of sorrow he didn't speak of. Once, I found him in the bedroom, holding the sweater I used to wear every Sunday. His eyes were closed. He was breathing it in like a man trying to remember something fading. Another time, he broke down when he saw an old video on my phone, us dancing in the kitchen, offbeat and laughing before I got sick. He didn't know I was watching. This new version of Jake was stronger, yes. But he was also lonelier. Because the version of me he had fought for no longer existed in full. Yes, I was recovering. I could speak clearly again. Remember more. The tremors had lessened. But I wasn't the same woman who had jumped on the roof of his car with a bottle of wine and a map to nowhere. And he knew it. Still, he stayed. Still, he held my hand every time we walked into another specialist's office. Still, he asked me how I was feeling every morning, really feeling. Still, he memorized the new version of me, even as he mourned the old one. Love had made him into something new. And I had to accept that part of him had burned to save me. Jake once told me, some people wait their whole lives for the universe to give them a purpose. Mine came the moment you forgot my name. It was the most beautiful, terrifying thing I'd ever heard. Because I knew what it cost him. But he never once asked for anything back. There's a quiet that settles in when you realize the storm didn't win. Not silence. Just peace. The kind that comes after. After the fight. After the fire. After the fear has carved its way through your bones and left you hollow but still standing. That's where we are now. It's been 7 months since the new diagnosis. For since my last seizure. 2 since I held a brush and painted something I didn't hate. The road to healing isn't straight. It curls and stumbles and takes you down backroads you didn't ask for. But Jake walks it with me. Every single day. He keeps a log of my progress. He celebrates tiny victories, when I remember the name of a song, when I wake without trembling, when I laugh before the tears. But I've noticed something. The more I return to myself, the more I see the places in him that never healed. Jake's transformation didn't come without scars. He carries them in the way he watches me sleep, like he's still waiting for me to vanish. In the way he flinches when I pause mid-sentence, afraid I've lost the thread again. He doesn't say it aloud, but I see it, he's still grieving. Not just what he almost lost, but who he had to become to keep me. We sit on the porch some nights, our porch now, not his, wrapped in a blanket, listening to the wind move through the trees. And sometimes, without asking, he reaches for my hand and just holds it. Not because I'm slipping, but because he remembers what it felt like when I was. And I do too. We never went back to the way we were. And maybe that's the point. Love isn't about getting back to the beginning. It's about surviving the middle. It's about staying when things get ugly, when memories falter, when hope feels too expensive. It's about choosing someone again and again, even when the version of them you loved first starts to fade. Some days, we are happy. Really, deeply, quietly happy. We make pancakes. We argue about movies. We plan small trips to places we've never seen, and write our grocery list on sticky notes shaped like hearts. On those days, it almost feels like the storm never came. And then there are days when I forget what I was saying mid-sentence. Or I wake up not sure where I am. Or he finds me staring too long at nothing. And he doesn't panic anymore. He just holds my face gently in his hands and says, "I'm right here." And I say, "I know." Because I do. Because even if my mind slips again, my heart remembers. I think in the end, love isn't what saves us from pain. It is the pain. It's the aching, breaking, choosing anyway. Love is memory and forgetting. It's holding on while letting go. It's the echo of laughter in a hallway that once knew silence. Jake and I, we are not who we were. We are something truer. Something built from the pieces we didn't know we could survive breaking. And when people ask me how we made it through, I just say this. We didn't. We are still making it through. Together. Because love and pain are one. And both are worth it. Subscribe, like, and tell people about this love.